Welcome to our deep dive into Peter Obi,
Right.
one of the most, well, I think we can say intriguing figures in Nigerian politics.
Definitely, yeah.
You've sent us some really interesting sources this time around.
Yeah.
We have a podcast interview where he really seems to open up
Yeah,
his Wikipedia page and then some recent news articles.
it seems like we've got quite a puzzle to piece together here.
I think so, yeah.
Trying to get a sense of the man.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of our mission for this deep dive, right?
That's
To
a
try to
good
figure out what makes him pick,
Yeah.
what drives his vision for Nigeria, and why he seems to spark such strong reactions.
Yeah, both positive and negative.
Absolutely.
So it's a
I
fascinating
think so too.
it's a fascinating story, isn't it?
It is.
You have this businessman turned politician who's captured the hearts of many, especially the youth.
Yeah.
There's a real sense of hope and possibility surrounding him.
Absolutely. And speaking of his background, I mean, his story is anything but typical. I mean, his Wikipedia page gives us the rundown. Born in Onitsha in 1961, attended Christ the King College, then went on to study philosophy at the University of Nigeria.
Philosophy.
You wouldn't think that's the typical launchpad for a business tycoon,
Right.
let alone a politician.
No, not the usual path.
No.
But then you hear him in the YouTube interview talking about his time as the youngest bank chairman in Nigeria.
I know.
Clearly, there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Right. And it seems like he's always been driven to excel.
Yeah.
I mean, his Wikipedia entry also mentions further studies at some pretty prestigious institutions.
Oh, yeah.
Harvard, Cambridge,
Wow.
the London School of Economics.
Talk about a commitment to lifelong learning.
I know.
That's incredible.
It is.
And it really shines through in the interview, too. He talks about how some of the world's greatest change makers didn't even go to university.
Right.
There's a real emphasis on practical skills, on empowering people to create value regardless of their background.
It makes you wonder if that perspective was shaped by his own, diverse educational journey.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why he connects so well with people from all walks of life.
it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And speaking of connections, he shares these really impactful stories about lessons learned from his mother.
Yeah.
Honesty, responsibility, not envying others, values that seem to be woven into the very fabric of his being.
And those values really come into focus when he talks about his decision to enter politics. It
Right.
wasn't some calculated career move.
Right.
In the YouTube interview, he describes witnessing a public execution.
Wow.
And it's clear that experience shook him to his core.
Yeah.
He talks about it being a turning point, a moment where he couldn't just stand by and watch the problems around him fester.
It's a stark reminder that for him, politics isn't some abstract game.
Right.
It's about real lives,
Yeah.
real struggles,
Yeah.
and a deep desire to make a difference.
And he even mentions being hesitant to run for office initially. It took people believing in him, urging him to step up before he kind of took the plunge.
That's interesting.
And that path to becoming governor wasn't easy.
Right.
Both the interview and Wikipedia mentioned his legal battles after the 2003 election, fighting to reclaim his mandate.
Yeah.
It shows a tenacity,
It does.
a belief in due process, and a willingness to stand up for what he believes is right.
Absolutely.
Which, as we know, isn't always the norm in Nigerian politics.
Oh, you're telling me.
And that commitment really shines through in his stories about serving as governor of Anambra State. In the YouTube interview, he gives these vivid examples of how he approached governing.
Okay.
Turning down a fancy office renovation, limiting government spending on lavish parties, prioritizing basic services like healthcare and education.
Interesting.
It paints a pretty stark contrast to the extravagance we often associate with Nigerian politicians.
It really does. What's fascinating is that it's not just about saving money for the sake of it. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset.
Yeah.
He's sending a message that public funds should be used to serve the people, not to line the pockets of the elite.
And he even shares that anecdote about refusing to stay in the governor's lodge when the president visited,
Really?
opting to stay in a hotel instead
Wow.
to avoid unnecessary expenses.
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
The challenge is that whole notion of entitlement that often comes with high office.
Right.
And it resonates with people who are tired of seeing their leaders living large while they struggle to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note, his Wikipedia page backs up these anecdotes with concrete achievements during his time as governor.
Right.
He's not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
He's walking the walk.
I like that.
That's a good way to put it.
And perhaps the most telling detail of all,
Okay.
he left substantial savings for the state when his term ended.
Wow.
There was no legal obligation to do so.
No.
It seems like he genuinely cared about the long-term well-being of Anambra, even after his time in office was over.
It speaks volumes about his character
Yeah.
and his commitment to serving the people,
Right.
not just his own ambitions.
Yeah. It's a great example of what he means when he talks about his vision for Nigeria.
Okay.
Tackling poverty, improving education and healthcare, fostering a productive society where everyone has a chance to thrive.
Yeah.
These aren't just campaign slogans.
Yeah.
They seem to be deeply held beliefs.
And the way he expresses these ideas in the interview is so compelling.
Yeah.
You know, he uses phrases like turning night vigil into night shift,
I love that one.
and God can bless hard work, not sleep.
Yeah.
There's a real emphasis on moving beyond rhetoric and religious observance and focusing on tangible action and real results.
He doesn't shy away from challenging deeply ingrained cultural norms either.
Right.
He critiques the overdependence on politics and religion, advocating for a shift towards productivity and a more equitable distribution of wealth. I can see why that might ruffle some feathers. He's not afraid to stir the pot.
Exactly. He's pushing people to confront uncomfortable truths
Yeah.
about what's holding Nigeria back from reaching its full potential.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, you're right.
He's a disruptor, and that's both exciting and unsettling for some.
Right.
And even when he talks about complex issues like the fuel subsidy, which we should probably explain
Oh, yeah, definitely.
for our listeners who may not be familiar with the Nigerian context.
Absolutely. The fuel subsidy is a complex issue that has been a source of debate and controversy for decades in Nigeria.
Okay.
Essentially, the government, in an attempt to make fuel more affordable for its citizens, has historically subsidized the cost of petrol,
Okay.
keeping prices artificially low.
But this policy has come with unintended consequences, right?
Oh, absolutely. Things like encouraging smuggling
Yeah.
and creating opportunities for corruption.
Right.
Many argue that the funds spent on the subsidy could be better used for other crucial development projects.
So instead of simply calling for the removal of the subsidy,
Right.
which is a highly sensitive topic,
Yeah.
Obi talks about removing the criminality associated with it.
Interesting.
It's a nuanced approach that seeks to address the root of the problem, not
Yeah.
just the symptoms.
It shows a willingness to engage with complexity and seek solutions that benefit everyone, not just those who profit from the current system.
Absolutely. And that approach has earned him both admirers and critics.
For sure. It seems like his message really struck a chord with many Nigerians,
Yeah.
particularly young people, leading to the rise of what's known as the obedient movement.
The obedient movement.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
His Wikipedia page describes it as a largely youth-driven force that mobilized behind his presidential candidacy in the 2023 election.
Okay.
It really highlights the disillusionment many felt with the established political parties
Yeah.
and their perceived failures to address the country's problems.
It's a powerful testament to his ability to connect with people
Absolutely.
who feel ignored and disenfranchised by the political system.
Yeah. And his decision to switch from the People's Democratic Party to the Labor Party further fueled that perception of him being a true alternative,
Yeah.
a break from the old ways of doing things.
He's certainly not afraid to challenge the status quo.
No, it's not.
And his supporters love him for it.
They do. But it's also important to acknowledge that he has his fair share of critics, too.
He does.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No politician is without their critics, especially one as disruptive as Obi.
Right.
His Wikipedia page mentions the controversy surrounding the Pandora Papers.
Okay.
For our listeners, the Pandora Papers were a massive leak of financial documents that exposed how the wealthy and powerful use offshore tax havens to hide their assets.
Right. And Obi was named in these documents as having connections to offshore companies.
He was.
He maintains that these accounts were from his time as a businessman
Okay.
and that he's done nothing wrong.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
And it's definitely sparked debate about transparency and accountability,
Yeah.
even among his supporters.
Even among his supporters.
Yeah. And even beyond specific controversies.
Okay.
They're contrasting views on his leadership style.
Right.
Some, like former Senator Shehu Sani,
Okay.
find him too soft,
Too soft.
perhaps lacking the toughness needed to navigate the often cutthroat world of Nigerian politics.
This is where we start to see the real clash of ideologies.
Yeah.
For some, his emphasis on civility and due process is a sign of weakness,
Right.
while others view it as a refreshing departure from the aggressive win-at-all-costs mentality that has often dominated Nigerian politics.
It's fascinating to see how his approach is both lauded and criticized,
It is.
depending on who you ask.
Right.
It raises some really interesting questions about what kind of leadership is needed
Right.
to bring about meaningful change in a system as complex as Nigeria's.
It's a debate that goes beyond Nigeria as well.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you balance idealism with pragmatism?
Yeah.
How do you fight for what's right without resorting to the same tactics that perpetuate corruption and injustice?
Right.
These are questions we all grapple with, whether we're talking about politics, business, or even our personal lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot between holding on to your values
Right.
and navigating the realities of a system that doesn't always reward integrity.
Well said. And that leads us to the heart of what makes Peter Obi such a compelling figure.
Right.
He represents hope, yes, but also a challenge.
Yeah.
He's forcing us to examine our own beliefs about leadership,
Yeah.
about what it takes to create a better future, not just for Nigeria, but for all of us.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on.
Let's move on to part two
To part two
of this deep dive.
into Peter Obi.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
You know, as we're talking about these contrasting views on Obi's leadership style, it's important to remember that the obedient movement itself really challenges the idea of him being too soft.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a bunch of people passively agreeing with him.
Right.
They were actively engaged,
Yeah.
organizing rallies, using social media to amplify his message, and demanding change.
You're so right. That kind of grassroots energy requires a leader who can inspire and connect with people
It does.
on a deep level. It seems like he tapped into this wellspring of frustration, particularly among young Nigerians who crave a different kind of politics.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting that this movement wasn't confined to one particular region or ethnic group.
Right.
Obi, a Christian from the Igbo-speaking Southeast,
Yeah.
attracted significant support in the predominantly Muslim North.
That's remarkable. It suggests his message transcended traditional divides,
It does.
focusing on issues that resonate with all Nigerians.
Yeah.
It really speaks to a yearning for unity, for a leader who prioritizes the common good over partisan interests.
It does make you wonder, though, about the role of social media in all of this.
Oh, for sure.
Obi's campaign was incredibly savvy in using digital platforms to bypass traditional gatekeepers
Yeah.
and connect directly with voters.
It's a game changer, isn't it?
It is.
We're seeing this trend play out in politics globally.
Absolutely.
The way we consume and share information is rapidly evolving, and it's having a profound impact on how political movements gain momentum.
It's a double-edged sword, though.
Oh, yeah, of course.
While social media can be a powerful tool for positive change,
yeah,
it also has a dark side.
it does.
The spread of misinformation, the potential for manipulation,
Right.
these are all factors we need to be mindful of.
It definitely raises important questions about media literacy, about how we distinguish truth from falsehood in an increasingly fragmented information landscape.
For sure.
Yeah.
But circling back to Obi himself,
Yeah,
there's a real sense of authenticity that comes through in that YouTube interview.
I agree.
He's not afraid to be vulnerable, to share personal stories, to even poke fun at himself.
It's refreshing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
You don't often encounter that level of candor from politicians.
You don't.
There's a warmth and humanity that shines through,
Yeah.
a quality that undoubtedly contributed to his appeal.
He even talks about his frugal habits.
Oh, yeah.
Like how he flies economy class even when traveling with his wife, who prefers business class.
Really?
Small detail,
It is.
but it reinforces that message of fiscal responsibility.
He doesn't just talk the talk.
Right.
He walks the walk.
Exactly. He tells these stories about donating money
Yeah.
that would have been spent on lavish celebrations to schools and hospitals in Anambra State.
It's like those small gestures are also symbolic of a larger philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that quote where he says, public wealth enriches everybody. Individual wealth impoverishes everybody.
That's a powerful statement. It really gets to the heart of his vision, doesn't it?
It does. A belief in shared prosperity,
Yeah.
in building a system that benefits all Nigerians, not just a select few.
And it's not just about economic prosperity either.
Right.
He emphasizes the importance of education, healthcare security, the fundamentals of a just and equitable society.
And he links those issues directly to the need for a productive society. He uses that memorable phrase, turning night vigil into night shift.
I love that. He's basically challenging the idea that religious devotion should come at the expense of economic activity.
Yeah.
It's a bold stance, especially in a country where faith plays such a central role in people's lives.
He's not saying faith is unimportant,
Right.
but rather advocating for a more balanced approach,
Yeah.
one that recognizes the critical role of productivity in driving societal progress.
And let's be honest, he's not afraid to step on some toes.
He's not.
Yeah.
He directly criticizes those in power,
Yeah.
particularly the political and religious elite who he sees as benefiting from the status quo.
That's where his boldness really shines through.
Yeah,
He's not afraid to speak truth to power, even if it makes him unpopular with those in charge.
absolutely. He's not just offering platitudes.
Right.
He's challenging the very systems that have led to inequality and injustice.
And that's why he triggers such strong reactions.
Yeah.
He's a disruptor, a force for change in a system that often resists change fiercely.
It's almost like he's holding up a mirror to Nigerian society, forcing people to confront uncomfortable realities.
But even his critics,
Right.
the ones who call him too soft or question his methods,
Yeah.
often acknowledge his integrity and his genuine desire to serve the people.
It seems like there's a consensus, even among those who disagree with him,
Yeah.
that he's a good man driven by noble intentions.
It's a testament to his character,
It is.
his ability to rise above the often bitter fray of Nigerian politics.
It leaves us with some big questions, though.
It does.
Can he truly translate his vision into reality?
Yeah.
What role will young people continue to play in shaping the country's future?
Those are questions for all of us to ponder.
They are. Peter Obi's story isn't over,
It isn't.
not by a long shot.
His impact on Nigerian politics is undeniable.
It is.
Whether he ultimately achieves his ambitious goals is yet to be seen.
But one thing's certain, his story has captured the imagination of a nation,
Yeah.
offering a flicker of hope for a brighter future.
That's a great point. And it speaks to the power of individuals to challenge the status quo, to inspire movements for change. It's a reminder that even when faced with seemingly impossible odds, hope and determination can make a difference.
Absolutely. And as we delve deeper into the complexities of Peter Obi's story, it's important to remember that this isn't just about one man or one election.
Right.
It's about the aspirations of a nation, the yearning for good governance, for a system that serves the needs of all its people.
Beautifully said. And on that note, let's shift our focus to the bigger picture.
Okay.
What are the lasting implications of Peter Obi's legacy, and what might the future hold for Nigerian politics?
Let's dive into that right now.
So we've been exploring the life and vision of Peter Obi, and honestly, it's been an incredible journey.
It has.
From his business background to his foray into politics,
Yeah.
there's so much to unpack.
You're right. It's like peeling back layers of an onion, and with each layer, we get a deeper understanding of what drives him, what motivates his actions, and what makes him such a captivating figure in Nigerian politics.
And even though we've covered a lot of ground, I find myself circling back to this idea of hope. Despite all the challenges, the setbacks, the deep-seated issues facing Nigeria, there's this persistent sense of optimism surrounding Obi.
It's almost palpable, wouldn't you say?
I would, yeah.
And I think it stems from the fact that he represents a distinct break from the past.
Okay.
You know, he's a departure from the cynicism, the self-interest, the politics, as usual, that have often dominated the Nigerian landscape.
It's like he embodies this belief that things can actually be different, that good governance is possible, that the dreams and aspirations of everyday Nigerians matter.
Precisely. And that message resonates powerfully, particularly with young people who are hungry for change, who refuse to accept the status quo as their inevitable fate.
It's almost as if he's given them permission to dream, to believe in a better future for themselves and their country.
And that's an incredibly potent force.
It is.
Hope, when channeled effectively, can mobilize people, ignite movements, and drive transformative change.
But we also know that hope alone isn't enough.
No, it's not.
It needs to be coupled with concrete action, with a clear roadmap for addressing the systemic challenges facing Nigeria.
And that's where Obi's focus on education, healthcare, and fostering a productive economy comes into play. These aren't just abstract goals. They're the very foundation upon which a thriving society is built.
He seems to understand that investing in people and creating opportunities for them to lift themselves out of poverty is the key to sustainable development.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And his emphasis on fiscal responsibility on rooting out corruption
Yeah.
is crucial for creating a level playing field,
Right.
for ensuring that resources are used to benefit the many, not just a select few.
It's about fairness, transparency, and accountability. But, as we've discussed, the road to change is rarely smooth.
No, it's not.
There will inevitably be resistance from those who benefit from the existing power structures,
Right.
from those who fear change and cling to the old ways of doing things.
Overcoming those obstacles will require political savvy strategic alliances and a willingness to compromise without sacrificing core values.
It's a delicate dance, and it remains to be seen whether Obi and the movement he's inspired can maintain their momentum
Yeah.
and translate their aspirations into tangible results.
But regardless of what the future holds,
Yeah,
their impact on Nigerian politics is undeniable.
it is.
They've injected a much-needed dose of hope,
Right.
idealism, and a belief that a better Nigeria is within reach.
And they've empowered a new generation of citizens
Yeah.
to engage in the political process, to demand accountability from their leaders,
Absolutely.
and to actively shape the kind of Nigeria they want to live in.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the question we're left with is this.
Okay.
What does Peter Obi's story mean for you, the listener?
It's a reminder that even when confronted with seemingly insurmountable challenges, individual actions can ripple outwards and make a difference.
It's a reminder that through thoughtful dialogue, holding our leaders accountable, supporting movements for positive change, we can all contribute to building a more just and equitable world.
Peter Obi's story is ultimately a testament to the enduring power of hope, of a bold vision, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a brighter future.
It is.
It's a story that continues to unfold, and it's one that deserves our attention.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Peter Obi.
Until next time, it's